Hello and welcome back. Northstar here with another Singularity Let's Play. Some of you like this game, so like watching it. So, I'm streaming this because I'm just doing a tiny bit of it. Still doing the money exploration. When this is uploaded, because I try to space the videos apart, it might not still be going on, but doesn't matter too much. For some reason, there doesn't seem to be much real competition for the top ranks at the moment. I swear the majority of people play this game must be university students or something, because there seems to be long periods where there's nothing, and then suddenly the ranks are getting swarmed. People. Excuse me. It's very suggestive of there being some kind of cycle in the player base related to exam cycles or such in universities. So let's see. Still stressing out over government nonsense with not being reachable. Real long phone wait times to reach any human being. So how am I supposed to, get any sort of feedback or have any kind of discussion with them about how their records are inaccurate in my work history at the Social Security Administration? I don't know. I think that's the point. Watched an interesting Robert Reich discussion on, he went on with this Al Jazeera guy, had this very dignified looking African American host who I don't remember seeing before on YouTube. He seemed a little new to the idea of streaming things for YouTube, and it was an interview. It was interesting. They were discussing the decline of the U.S. empire, which some good points made there. Oh, there, I didn't have it to max. I was wondering why I was always showing one. Because all empires fall in the end. And the point Reich was making is the U.S. empire is very much in decline, which I guess wake-up call for many people who aren't even aware of this. The U.S. is very much an empire. It dominates large parts of the globe, economically and militarily. If it's all the usual criteria of what an empire is, you don't have to directly control territory to run an empire. In fact, it wouldn't be the first empire it didn't. There have been trading empires before that similar to the U.S. didn't directly control territory. In fact, I think this is why some places where you see political discussions, you get these trolls who say, oh, trading empires are so much more virtuous. I think it's because they recognize the U.S. is a trading empire for a long time, or was. It's gaining no longer how that role, but for a long time, the U.S. dollar was dominant around the globe. U.S. companies monopolized the natural resources and manufacturing of many countries. U.S. banks controlled bodies like the IMF, which are not really controlled by a lot, or in World Bank. A lot of these are not really controlled by governments. They're controlled actually by banks. With banking influence helping determine how many votes. The governments obviously play a role, but the banks hold enormous influence, which is not talked about. Regardless, though, of whether you want to say the government or the banks make decisions in the end, it's U.S. banking dominance that gave dominance to those bodies, because that's how the votes are allocated. To do with role in banking. If I forget if it's the IMF, the World Bank, I'm thinking. But precisely it works like that. But also financial contributions, since the point is the U.S. dominates those bodies, had the currency that everyone bought and sold oil in, which is, you know, the key resource that makes the world go round. Still does, unfortunately, even as it's killing the planet. Controls, especially the oil resources, a lot of the world. I mean, it's an empire. And it's an empire in decline now, which is why Reich was arguing Trump is doing the things he's doing, and he was actually rather generous. Trump said the whole point of the Ukraine thing is that something any U.S. president would have had to do sooner or later, because the options are nuclear war, conventional war, or pulling out, because the whole Lend-Lease thing just isn't working. And the U.S. can't afford it when it needs to, in the words of Defense Secretary, or at least the ruling class believes this is necessary, pivot to China, focus on trying to break Chinese power as it rises, and, you know, that's not going to work out well. Empires that are in decline often try and beat down the up-and-coming ones, and they rarely succeed. I don't know, it was interesting. I recommend looking up Robert Reich interview. Al Jazeera was he goes on pretty much every news organization they'll have him, so it's not like he's a regular on that channel if you don't want to watch it. He's also done stuff on, I think he's been on Democracy Now! He's been on, just about every YouTube. I'm trying to think what else he's been on recently, specifically that was interesting, because he goes on some of them, and the interviews aren't always, sometimes they're just boring. I don't know, enjoyed it. I mentioned this one because it was particularly enthralling, entertaining, I guess you could say. What else? Having some decent days with regards to my long COVID, which is not to say that I'm by any means better, because I'm not, but just that some days with symptoms are a lot less severe. That's nice. I'll take this opportunity to, by the way, plug my other YouTube Let's Play series, Hearts Iron 4, Wildermyth. I just put up some more videos of that, Pop-Up Dungeon, or I should say just record some videos that I'm still uploading, but they'll be up soon. Pop-Up Dungeon, thinking about doing a video or two of Interstellar Transport Company. I did some more Avorion, another Avorion video. I'll be doing some more Age of Wonders 3 ones soon. I think I just uploaded the last one from the schedule of those. So there's some recent ones for you folks, but since that's a multiplayer game I've been doing in it, I don't have a single player Let's Play currently of it. I gotta get the guy I'm doing it with to have time to do some more videos with me to produce more content. So hopefully next chance I get in like a few days, I'll have some more of those videos. Hope your viewers are doing well. Feel free to leave comments. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you're thinking. This is a tiny channel, so I might, actually see them, since comments are very rare. If, something I can respond to. It's not just like, you suck, man, or you're awesome, but, something I can respond to. I might, say something back. I don't know. Let me know games you might want to see me do streams of. Let me know what you'd like to see more or less of in terms of how I do videos, emphasis in those. I don't know. I'm just sitting here doing this stupid. It reminds me of trying to remember what's it called? Skinner's Rat, where you press a button over and over and or pull a lever over and over to get a treat, or sometimes not. This clicker game is ridiculous, but it's what they do a little bit. And occasionally see interesting descriptions of stuff like like Quipu here, which I just did, talks about advanced record keeping can be achieved in the absence of writing. The Incans use an intricate system of knotted strings to record and transmit a wide range of information. Yeah, read up about those if you've never heard of them. It's pretty interesting. It's cool stuff. The Incans were a very advanced civilization. Probably comparable to the ancient Egyptians, but then plus some. Definitely more complex than, say, the Iron Age civilizations of Northern Europe, which, although they had the ability to work iron, tended to exist in relatively small tribes and weren't large city builders like the Incans were. The Incans built cities, terraced agriculture. That is, they cut the mountains into steppes and farmed all sorts of advanced irrigation and mathematics, bureaucracy, record keeping. That's obviously more advanced than, some Germans in a forest. Or the Spanish Hill tribes that were contemporaries of ancient Rome or something like that. I mentioned that partly because there's this, I think, kind of racist idea that many people don't learn the history of the advanced pre-European civilizations of Latin America. Very much, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Inca. There were others too. Those are just the three really famous ones people hear about. They were empire builders, and therefore I think the Europeans are more fascinated with them than the smaller, more insular city-states, which, ancient Greeks in the very early era had city-states, and we still learn about them. So why don't we learn about the little Central American city-states that were surrounding the Mayans, were the city-states that the Incans eventually conquered to the north, I think it was. I don't know. They should be taught, but people don't learn enough about those. Anyways. So at least this game, for all its, including capitalist and sometimes imperialist myths, does at least make a nod to the Quipu and Rise Stones and some other innovations of pre-European civilizations in the in this exploration, although too much it focuses on the old world and engages with some of the more strange things of the new. It doesn't talk about, was the Mayan system of writing and how that was used to do economic account keeping, similar to the way I think the Sumerians did a lot of record keeping with stone tablets. The Mayans, if I remember, they had a written language. The Incans didn't. But the Mayans did, even though they came hundreds of years earlier, but they're further north. And the thing to know about the Americas is human spread in the American continents from the north, specifically Alaska, where the land bridge connected from Eurasia. And so civilizations, the further you get from Alaska, basically, the less time they had to develop. So the Incans, even though they were many hundreds of years after the Mayans, you could think of them as it being like an earlier point in history in some ways, because humans hadn't been in that part of the earth as long as they had in Central America. It took a long time for civilization to get past the Darien Gap, which is like Colombia, very dense jungles there. Ultimately, humans spread past that mostly by sea instead of by land, if I remember correctly. I mean, some people obviously must have come by foot, but the more advanced civilizations, they sent like rafts along the coast. Trade routes developed, and that's where, you know, the rail technology came, is by way of those coastal trade routes. Because right, human civilization technology usually spreads faster than it's developed. Trade is very good for spreading it. Which I guess there's something we said there about like Trump and his tariffs. Gonna lead to less. If it does lead to less trade, it's gonna lead to less technology coming to the U.S. from other countries and innovations, and that's gonna eventually lead to the U.S. falling behind. Of course, that's only if this keeps up for a long period and the tariffs even succeed. There's ways around that, like technological exchange programs independent of just normal economic trade, but that requires government intervention. And I don't think people that Trump makes plans with are really big into that kind of thing. It's very leans towards socialism, where you have the government maybe licensing technologies from other countries and heavily funding research and development, and even creating markets with investment, direct investment, which is very much, I mean, most capitalist countries actually in the early stages had periods of direct government investment and development of their economy. For instance, the Philippines, before the U.S. gave them independence, but after it formed an independent government, that government went about actually building some industries. I was just reading about this today, earlier. Direct investment to get the economy going, even though they fully intend to go capitalist in the long run. Which, of course, these industries weren't free to build. It was done by accumulating debt that would have to be paid by the taxpayers, even though all the profits went to the new ownership class, the new bourgeois, if you will, in Marx's terms. And that's the thing. You can find this pattern in like the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, even a little bit in France. The government sets up industries, but then they're handed off to private industrialists, even though they were built at government expense and funded by taxation or debt. Free market is rarely as free as people make it out to be, and the rich often got rich in ways like that, partly. You can find the same pattern, sort of, in slightly different form in Eastern Europe, where when the Soviet Union collapsed and all the neoliberal shock therapy came to Eastern Europe, you had the governments of these countries that were very much under the thumb of the United States and taking advice from it, selling off all their assets that had been literally industries built by the government, because under socialism, state-owned enterprises were kind of the normal way of doing things. And so these industries were built at government expense, and then they were sold off, and often accumulating a lot of debt. Like Romania accumulated an enormous amount of debt, industrializing their country, ended up having to borrow IMF loans. And then when socialism fell there, the industries were sold off at bargain bin prices to often politically connected individuals and foreign multinationals who got rich off of these very cheaply obtained assets, while the taxpayers got screwed. In Russia, theoretically, everyone was given these like slips that technically were shares in the state-owned enterprises. So theoretically, it wasn't just given to politically connected individuals. But the thing is people didn't really know how much these were worth. And because all the social safety nets and services were cut out from under people, a lot of people had to sell these stocks at very, very much lower prices than what they were really worth, just to survive. Some of them even knew that they were getting screwed by having to do this, but they had no choice. Because you had basically people living on the edge of starvation when capitalism came to Russia after the Soviet Union collapsed. And that's not the fault of socialism, that's the fault of capitalism and the intentional cutting of welfare systems and the intentional ending of like subsidies on food and housing, and it all being done in such a way that that wages were kept low at the same time, so most people were struggling to survive. In fact, labor unions were attacked. Government workers were laid off en masse. It was an intentional attempt to create a rich ruling class, not any kind of equitable ownership of society's factories and roads and, well, roads weren't private, but factories and hospitals and all the other stuff that what socialists call means of production. They were just given to a handful of politically connected pricks in the end, even if it was indirectly via those people being given enough stuff that the stocks that were distributed to the ordinary people, like I talked about, could just be bought up cheaply by these people because they already had some money that they had made off of corrupt deals, and then that money allowed them to make more money by hoarding assets and using their privileged position to buy up ordinary people's like stock shares very cheaply, often with connections to foreign banks and loans and stuff that ordinary people didn't have the ability to just borrow large amounts of money from English or American banks. But these connected few did. They managed to get some assets and leverage them, and they got the assets through dishonest means usually. They're like buddies of like Pune types. The story was replicated over and over. But whatever. I have a feeling a lot of people are just never going to learn that capitalism is not your friend and is not good for ordinary people. There's been so much brainwashing ever since the Cold War that most people who are even listening to this are probably just dismissing me. And so people are going to keep suffering because capitalism keeps screwing them. That's going to lead to cuts to welfare programs. It's going to lead to government bureaucracies you can't reach on the phone. They probably intentionally keep inaccurate records of things like work history to screw people like they're doing to me. I refuse to believe that this is by accident. This seems so malicious. I cannot imagine. And it so obviously benefits the ruling class. I cannot imagine a way that this just happened to become the case, that now people have to wait hours to get someone on the phone at the Social Security Administration. And they just don't have years of my employment history. I have whole periods where I was working 2 jobs and they have no employment history for me in that period. It's like I was working 60-hour weeks. I was working 60 hours between two jobs, or maybe a little less because I had to commute between the two of them. But I mean, 54-hour weeks, maybe. When you add in the commuting, I had to bike between jobs because I didn't have a car at the time, so that was actually a pretty long commute. Because I was living frugally, cars are expensive, and I was, trying to live within my means. I was healthy enough to bike. I was young, so I did it. To save money. Anyhow, keep drinking the Kool-Aid. Keep thinking that capitalism is your friend. It'll only bite you in the end. Ignore everything I'm saying. I'm sure anyone who's listening is, if they're not already very left-wing. Whatever. Credit. Just unlocked credit. One of the fundamental building blocks of capitalism. When money has been borrowed or payment deferred, lenders must be able to trust that debt will be repaid. If this trust is compromised, borrowers can expect to face higher interest rates. Oh, well, okay, that's not really. That's talking about credit rating. Credit is actually, of course, lending money at interest, and the whole system of how that works in terms of reserve banking, loan repayment schedules, leveraging borrowing limits. It's not credit rating. That's an intentionally oversimplified approach, and probably for ideological reasons, knowing the author of this game. But everything about him seems to point to him being a right-wing libertarian, with a shallow understanding of economics and sociology at best. It just creates a lot of these explorations off Wikipedia, but fortunately there's a lot of people out there like that. He really needs to add some actually useful trophies you can buy with logits. Just a thought. I'm just gonna check beyond here and Mesozoic Valley, and I think that's enough for this video. Hope you folks enjoyed, or I didn't bother you too much. I don't really know what to talk about today, so I'm just talking whatever comes to mind, and that's whatever. I do like how the Beyond scenario here, the star missions, with give you a name of a different star each time, kind of helps grind in just how enormous, and I mean absolutely enormous, the galaxy is. Although actually, if I pay attention, I think it repeats the names many times. Let's see with this one. Skipped over it before it showed the name. DH Tari. Yeah, okay, it's just a very limited name list. There are millions of stars that we have names for, I'm pretty sure. There are millions in the sky. Maybe we haven't. I mean, a lot of them are just systemic names, I think. Nothing unique. Could be wrong about the number have been named. But considering that, let's see, the Milky Way alone, and we can see other galaxies, although I don't know if we actually name the stars in other galaxies at all, has, let's get you guys an accurate figure, 100 billion to 400 billion stars. So many. It makes games like, say, Stellaris, where maybe there's a few hundred stars in a galaxy, laughable. And then they have to come up with ridiculous reasons to justify it, like, oh, these are only the ones that are connected by the miraculous hyperspace lane network. I mean, since the vast majority are without habitable planets, most likely, they could just, create a much larger number of systems without habitable planets and stars. And get, a few thousand in a typical galaxy. It's not going to mess up gameplay that bad. Oh well. That's part of what then annoys me when the number of stars becomes a limiting factor for, say how many habitats you can build in stars. It's like, what? There are 100 billion stars at least in the Milky Way. This isn't a particularly enormous galaxy. And you expect me to believe the spacefaring civilization within a few hundred years of reaching the stars has run out of space to build the orbital habitats? Really? It's bullshit. It's a completely flawed conceit of game design, so they can push their map painting, conquer your enemies type of gameplay instead of something that could have been more interesting and creative. Or the only reason you conquer an enemy is because they might try and come for you, not because you run out of space to expand, which pretty much never realistically happen. I mean, heck, even the Star Wars universe, which is hardly hard science fiction, in fact, really space fantasy. You don't see the Empire and the Rebels fighting each other because, there's no room for you to expand. It's a huge number of uncharted systems in that galaxy and huge number of uncolonized, even habitable worlds. Now you see them fighting each other because of ideology and control and being existential threats to each other. Well, whatever. 100 billion stars. So many. I hope you folks enjoyed this. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves, and may always find a guiding star to lead you home. Adieu.